Yes, my name is Billy Lolos, and this is a copy of this is my information table. It's set up indoors because we had a hard time with the wind and the volume on this recording. I set this is mobile and it moves, and I set it up at various parks and streets, and I engage people about the great Monsanto boycott. A lot of people don't know who Monsanto is. A lot of people don't know what GMOs are, and part of my job is to educate people so that they can really understand what they're eating thanks to Monsanto, our FDA, our USGA, and a policy where they don't use the precautionary principle. They don't need to know if a product is safe. They let it on the market and let the chips fall where they may. So anyway, this is my video, and a lot of people don't know who Monsanto is. Well, if you looked up evil in the dictionary, it would say see Monsanto. This company has a history, a litany of producing harmful products, introducing them into the environment, harmful for the environment, harmful for people, harmful for life on this planet. Now, they are responsible for all kinds of toxins. It started with saccharin. They had Agent Orange, which a byproduct of making that is dioxin, which is probably the most toxic substance on the planet. They dumped it anywhere and everywhere. They're responsible for every living organism having PCBs in them, Agent Orange, and they have a history of denying any culpability. The Veterans Administration has identified over 50 ailments associated with exposure to Agent Orange. And to this day, Monsanto denies that it's that caused any maladies in anyone. So, this is the company in charge of our food production. Now, a lot of people don't know what GMOs are. They seem to think it's like something we've been doing for 150 years, going back to Mendel and the selective breeding. He did some cross-pollination, and that's the key word. He used the genes on the genetic code of a plant that were inactive or recessive, and through crossbreeding and cross-pollination, he got that recessive gene to be dominant in a whole strain of peas. That's a selective breeding. What genetic engineering does, it goes right to the DNA, the genome of the plant. They inject a pesticide or an antibiotic or a gene from a flounder, makes it cold resistant. They attach that to a bacteria or a virus and shoot it right into the genetic code of the plant. They literally are creating a new genome. They're creating a new life form. Now, every time that plant reproduces, every cell reproduces the bacteria or the virus plus whatever gene they wanted to manufacture, like a pesticide or an antibiotic to make it Roundup resistant. And we're ingesting this stuff. This stuff, when we eat it, our immune systems, and everybody is a little different to their susceptibility, their sensitivity, but your immune system does not recognize it as food. It's got the DNA of a bacteria because it has bacteria in it. It's got the DNA of an insecticide because some of it has insecticides in it. And how they got this stuff passed is beyond me. Because back in 1992, the FDA's own scientists had repeatedly warned that genetically modified foods can create unpredictable, hard-to-detect side effects, including allergies, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems. But they were ignored. a gentleman named Michael Taylor, who was appointed by George Bush Sr. to a deputy director of the FDA. He said that the studies that Monsanto did were approved, and the person who did the study is a woman named Margaret Miller, who was a Monsanto chemist. She did the study, she went to work for the FDA, and she rubber stamped her own study. And that's one of the problems with our regulatory agencies. They're loaded with people like the FDA, pharmaceutical companies have representatives. This GMO, genetically modified seed, agrochem giants have people, employees from that industry right on the regulatory agency. It never should have been approved. In fact, in 2000, the Institute for Safety and Science wrote a letter to the UN, to the World Trade Organization, to every government on the planet, and urged them to stop producing genetically modified food. In the syllabus in the back, they have studies and studies and studies. What Monsanto said was not true. They said, number one, it's going to end world hunger. And it's kind of ironic. There was another product they introduced that was its claim to fame. It was going to end world hunger. And that was DDT. It practically wiped out the California condor and the bald eagle. And it wreaked havoc with the environment. But they denied any culpability. They're wonderful at that. Should we believe them now when they say genetically modified food is just as safe as non-GMO food? They won't even call it real food. Well, they just passed the Monsanto Protection Act, and if it's just as safe as non-GMO food, why do they need the Monsanto Protection Act? This is strictly corporate greed, and it's unbelievable the maladies that we're exposing our children to. Now, the studies that Monsanto did, 90-day studies, weren't long enough for any of the chronic illnesses to manifest themselves. They didn't show up yet. Well, this guy in France did a 2-year study, The Life of the Lab Rat, and what he found was unbelievable. He found that the GM, they were fed GM soy, genetically modified soy, and they had 50% more deaths of baby rats. So the litters were half the size as the control group, and the non-GMO, it was only 10% loss. So it's 400 times the mortality rate. The third generation of these mice were infertile. They were sterile. The test group, at the end of 2 years, was riddled with tumors. There was cancer. It's unbelievable that these products are allowed to be grown and sold as food. It is not food. Your body doesn't recognize it as food. It attacks it like an antigen. How many people do you know with leaky bowel syndrome and intestinal problems due to the fact that your immune system is attacking what you eat? How about food allergies? I never heard of anyone being allergic to things besides peanuts until just recently. I met a guy, he's allergic to tomatoes, corn, soy, strawberries. And it's all because this is genetically modified, and we're not. These things would never occur in nature. What Mendel was doing is he was taking things that occurred by chance, things that were already on the genome of the plant, and just sparking them, getting them to produce the trait he wanted. He wasn't creating a whole new life form. And herein lies the problem. Fertility clinics. Boy, there's probably 10 times more fertility clinics than there were just 17 years ago, when this BT, these plants that produce their own pesticide. We haven't seen pictures of the livestock killed off in India, where for generations after they pick the cotton, they let the livestock graze on the cotton plants. Well, they have Bt cotton that creates an insecticide, and after they picked the cotton, the livestock grazed on the plants and died. This stuff is poison, people. You're feeding it to your children, you're feeding it to your grandchildren. That is why we need to boycott Monsanto and all their products. Now, in my information table, I have a list, a website you can go to find the names of non-GMO verified products that are processed food. Your best bet is to buy organic or grow your own produce whenever possible, because Monsanto owns 40% of the farmland. 93% of the soy is genetically modified, produced in the United States. 90% of the corn is genetically modified. Probably 90% of the sugar beets, where the world gets their sugar from, you got to eat cane sugar, is genetically modified. Canola, we have a list in this pamphlet of the things that you got to avoid and how to avoid them. It's going to take an effort. You have to be an educated consumer. You have to read the labels, carry your list or the app that'll tell you if it has GMOs. This stuff is poison. It along with other number of things that our regulatory agencies just passed because they are former employees of the industry. They're supposed to be regulating. Now, how did that happen? In 2000, when the Institute for Safety and Science wrote those letters saying, don't grow this stuff. 780 scientists and doctors signed it. They sent it all over the world. That was in 2000. That's been 13 years now. And 3 separate administrations have appointed this guy Taylor to key positions in our regulatory agencies. The USDA has never denied Monsanto an application for anything. What we need to do is not buy their products. And the only way you can do that is to know. Now, they're going to say, well, we need to label these. Labeling is not the answer. Number one, the bees can't read, the butterflies can't read, and the cattle and pigs can't read. They're going to be still fed genetically modified corn and alfalfa. And because of this Monsanto Protection Act, which, by the way, expires at the end of September. So there's still time to notify your legislators on the federal level and tell them not to renew the Monsanto Protection Act. How anybody elected to represent the people can ignore the people when it comes to corporate profits. And that's what this is all about. They've cornered the seed market. Now, one of the myths they said is it's going to require less pesticide. Well, that's exactly the opposite happened. After all these years of using Roundup and this Bt corn, the farmers need more pesticide because the weeds are becoming resistant. They call them super weeds. The insects are becoming resistant. They call them super bugs. And they're requiring more and more herbicides and pesticides. Now, what the herbicides do, and they'll say right on the Roundup container, works on an enzyme in the weed, safe for children, pets and children. And that's malarkey. But what it really does is it kills the microbes in the ground. And when you lose the microbes, you lose valuable nutrients that we need in our diet. You take one out and you're setting yourself up for some problems, maybe. You take 2 of the 8 or 9 out, and yeah, you're definitely setting yourself up, going to have problems. You take out 3 of them, and it's going to be chronic problems. Look at autism. It's kind of funny that this collapsing colony disorder that the bees are suffering from, they're saying it's almost like the bees have autism. Well, autism is rampant in America today. It's like 1 in 49 children have autism. 1 in 5 adults are taking multiple medications that nobody knows the long-term effects because there hasn't been studies. The FDA just rubber stamps it. Don't get in the way of profit. That's what this is all about. Their greed is killing us. You have to educate yourself. You have to write your legislators and tell them that you don't want the Monsanto Protection Act to be renewed. And you've got to make them stop producing this poison. And I tell you, if they really want to do a test, let's have Michael Taylor eat BT corn and GM soy and all genetically modified fish and see how he does in a year and a half. One of the countries, either China or Japan, said, we're going to wait and see before we jump on the bandwagon with this GMO stuff, how the American children are in 10 years. Well, we're sick. We are the sickest industrialized nation. Our life expectancy is down to like 49th in the world. It was #1. And it's all related to this corporate takeover of our republic. And the pharmaceuticals, we do more drugs than any other country, yet we die earlier. We spend $2.6 trillion on health care. That's as much, if not more, than all but 4 countries spend on everything. Yet we're the sickest country industrialized on the planet. We're the only industrialized country that has for-profit health care. I wonder if there's a correlation between that. And the Food and Water Watch have a great article on Monsanto, their history. They talk about this revolving door between Monsanto and our government. I mean, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Rumsfeld, Clarence Thomas, they were all Monsanto councils. So these people that they appoint know full well that this stuff causes harm. They knew it about Agent Orange, they knew it about PCBs, they knew it about DDT, and yet they're claiming, well, the science ain't in. Well, why don't they require that same stringent research before they approve this poison? This stuff is poison, folks. Get off it. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine urged doctors, physicians to advise patients to avoid genetically modified food. They got 40% of our farmland. We've got to take back our food. Now, so go out there, folks, educate yourself, be a informed, educated consumer, learn to read labels, because even if they require labeling, there's going to be GMOs unless it's non-GMO verified. We picked up some 100% organic multi-grain pancake mix, and we read the labeling on it, and when we got it home, and unfortunately all the grains were organic, but there was cornstarch. Cornstarch, if you get cornstarch in America, unless it says organic on it, it's going to be genetically modified. Sugar beets, corn, soy, Hawaiian papaya, canola, this stuff, most of this stuff is in all of our processed food, and you don't need to ingest a lot to get your immune system to attack that bacteria or that virus. They've created new life forms and we're ingesting them. They use a bacteria or a virus as the vehicle to shoot it into the genome of the plant. This is nothing like anything anyone else did with selective breeding or cross-pollination. There is no pollination involved in making these seeds. In fact, on the corn seed it says poison. Whoever heard it? You can't eat the seed because it's poison. What are we growing? What are we feeding our children? It's time we stood up and let these people know we're not going to let you poison us in the name of profit. Enjoy yourselves. Be nice.